Welcome to Silent Revenge, where betrayal doesn't always arrive with loud arguments or broken doors. Sometimes it slips quietly into your life when you're already at your weakest. 3 weeks ago, my daughter was fighting for her life in a hospital bed, machines breathing for her, doctors unsure if she'd ever wake up again. And while I sat beside her every night, holding her cold hand and praying she'd open her eyes, the man who vowed to love her in sickness and in health was somewhere else. Not grieving, not waiting, not hoping. No, he was in another woman's bed. That night changed everything I believed about family loyalty and the people we trust the most. What he didn't realize was that I was about to discover the truth. And once I did, his life would never be the same. The night my daughter slipped into a coma began like any other ordinary Tuesday. I was halfway through washing the dishes when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. "Hello." I answered cautiously. A calm voice replied, "Is this Daniel Harper?"
Yes.
"This is Officer Ramirez with the San Diego Police Department. Your daughter, Emily Harper, has been involved in a serious car accident." For a moment, the words didn't make sense. They floated in the air like smoke, refusing to settle. Okay," I whispered. There was a pause. The kind of pause that steals the oxygen from a room. "She's alive, sir, but she's in critical condition." The plate in my hand slipped into the sink. I don't remember driving to the hospital. I only remember the fluorescent lights in the emergency room and the cold plastic chair beneath me. A doctor finally approached. "Mr. Harper." "Yes." "Your daughter suffered severe head trauma. She's currently in a coma." The word coma echoed inside my skull. "How long?" I asked. "We don't know." I nodded slowly, trying to hold myself together. Then I asked the question that felt obvious. "Where's her husband?" The doctor frowned slightly. "I'm not sure. She arrived alone." That didn't make sense. Emily's husband, Jason Miller, was supposed to be everything a father hopes for in the man who marries his daughter. Responsible, charming, devoted. At least that's what I thought. I pulled out my phone and called him. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. I texted him. "Emily's in the hospital. Call me." No response. Hours passed. I sat beside Emily's hospital bed, watching machines breathe for her. Her hand felt cold in mine. And Jason, her loving husband, still hadn't shown up. By midnight, something ugly had started to grow in the back of my mind. Fear, confusion, and a quiet, creeping suspicion. Because when your wife is lying unconscious in a hospital bed, there's only one reason you wouldn't answer the phone. You don't want to. And at that moment, I had no idea that the truth behind Jason's silence was about to destroy everything I thought I knew about him. Sometimes betrayal doesn't reveal itself immediately. Sometimes it waits for the moment you're already broken. And Jason was about to learn something very important about me. I may be patient, but I never forget. Jason finally called me back at 2017 in the morning. I remember the exact time because I had been staring at the glowing clock on the hospital wall for hours, watching every minute crawl by while Emily lay motionless beside me. When my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Jason's name lit up the screen. I answered immediately. "Where the hell have you been?" I demanded. There was a short pause before he spoke. "Daniel, what's going on?" "I just saw your text." His voice sounded groggy, confused, like someone who had just woken up. My jaw tightened. "Emily was in a car accident. She's in a coma." Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then he gasped. "What? When did this happen?" 8 hours ago, I said coldly. Another pause. I didn't know," he stammered. "My phone died earlier. I must have missed your calls." It sounded like a reasonable excuse, but something about it felt wrong. "You need to get to Mercy General Hospital," I said. "I'm on my way." He replied quickly. Then he hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand. Something in my gut twisted. Jason lived only 20 minutes from the hospital. Even with traffic, he should have been there quickly. But 40 minutes passed, then an hour, still nothing. Finally, nearly 2 hours later, Jason rushed into the ICU waiting room. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled. He looked like a man trying very hard to appear distressed. "Where is she?" he asked breathlessly. I stood up slowly. "She's stable," I said. "But she hasn't woken up." Jason ran a hand through his hair and exhaled dramatically. "Jesus, Emily." He followed me into the room. For a moment, he stood beside her bed, staring down at her pale face and the tubes connected to her body. Then he grabbed her hand. "Baby, I'm here," he whispered. If I didn't know better, I might have believed him. But the longer I watched him, the more something felt off. Jason kept glancing at his phone, checking it, locking it, checking it again. At one point, it buzzed in his pocket. He stepped outside the room to answer it. The door didn't close all the way, so I heard everything. A woman's voice, soft, intimate. Jason, are you still coming back tonight? My stomach dropped. Jason lowered his voice. I told you something happened. What kind of something? My wife's dad called. She got into an accident. A pause. Then the woman said something that made my blood run cold. Is she going to die? Jason sighed. I don't know yet. Then he said something even worse. If she does, everything changes. My fingers tightened around the hospital bed rail. In that moment, standing beside my unconscious daughter, I realized something horrifying. Jason wasn't just a bad husband. He was waiting to see if Emily lived or died. And suddenly, a quiet thought formed in my mind. If my daughter survived this, Jason Miller was going to regret every lie he ever told. Because betrayal may be silent, but revenge is patient. And mine was just beginning. I didn't confront Jason that night. Not yet. Anger was boiling inside my chest, but years of life had taught me something important. Rage makes mistakes, patience wins wars. So I stayed quiet. Jason returned to the room a minute later, slipping his phone back into his pocket like nothing had happened. You okay? He asked me. I nodded slowly. Just tired. That was partly true. But exhaustion wasn't the real weight pressing on my chest. It was the sound of that woman's voice replaying in my head. Are you still coming back tonight? Jason walked to Emily's bedside and leaned over her. I'm so sorry this happened to you, he whispered dramatically. The performance almost made me laugh. Almost. Because now that I knew what to look for, the cracks were obvious. Jason kept checking his phone. Every few minutes, text messages, notifications. At one point, his screen lit up while he held it in his hand. I saw the name before he locked it. Samantha. My stomach tightened. Not coworker, not friend. A heart emoji. That wasn't subtle. Jason noticed me watching and quickly turned the phone over. Work stuff, he muttered. I simply nodded. Inside, something cold was beginning to form. The next morning, Jason left the hospital around 6. I'm going home to shower, he said. I'll be back later. I watched him disappear down the hallway. Then I looked at Emily. Her chest rose and fell slowly with the machine's rhythm. She looked so small in that hospital bed. So vulnerable. My little girl. The same girl who used to run into my arms after school, crying about playground bullies. And now the man who promised to protect her was cheating on her while she fought for her life. I leaned closer and gently squeezed her hand. You deserve better than him, I whispered. That's when a new thought entered my mind. Not emotional. Strategic. Jason thought he was safe. He thought no one knew his secret. And secrets are dangerous when the wrong person discovers them. I pulled out my phone and opened a contact I hadn't spoken to in years. Marcus Grant. Private investigator. We used to work together when I owned my security company. Marcus answered on the second ring. Daniel Harper, he said. Haven't heard from you in a long time. I need a favor, I said quietly. What kind? I glanced toward the hallway where Jason had walked out. The kind that exposes liars. Marcus chuckled softly. Ooh, yes. Ooh. I didn't hesitate. My daughter's husband. There was a brief pause. Then Marcus said something that sent a strange calm through me. Give me 48 hours. I ended the call and sat beside Emily again. Jason believed he was juggling 2 lives. A loyal husband and a secret lover. But what he didn't realize was this. When someone betrays your family, you don't react immediately. You gather proof. You build a plan. And then you dismantle their entire world piece by piece. Because revenge isn't about anger. It's about timing. And Jason Miller had no idea the clock had already started. Marcus called me 36 hours later. I was sitting beside Emily's hospital bed when my phone vibrated. Her condition hadn't changed. The doctors kept repeating the same words. We're monitoring her. Brain swelling is still present. It may take time. Time. That word had become my entire life. But Jason didn't seem to have the same patience. I stepped out into the quiet hallway and answered the call. Tell me you found something, I said. Marcus gave a low whistle. Oh, I found more than something. My chest tightened. Start talking. Well, he said casually, your son-in-law didn't go home to shower that morning. I wasn't surprised. Where did he go? Nice place. Expensive. My jaw clenched. And, Marcus continued, wasn't alone. Of course he wasn't. The woman's name is Samantha Caldwell, 32, works at a marketing firm, divorced last year. I leaned against the wall.
How serious?
Marcus chuckled darkly. Let's just say they weren't acting like coworkers. My stomach twisted. Do they meet often? Every few days, Marcus said. Usually overnight. My fingers curled into a fist. While Emily lay unconscious, Jason had been playing house with someone else. But Marcus wasn't finished. There's more, he added. Of course there is, I muttered. Jason's been talking to a lawyer. That made me pause. What kind of lawyer? State attorney. My heartbeat slowed. Something about that felt wrong. What for? Marcus exhaled slowly. He's been asking questions about life insurance policies, inheritance rights, and what happens if a spouse dies without updating a will. For a moment, the hallway felt like it tilted. Jason wasn't just cheating, he was planning. Emily has a life insurance policy, I said quietly. How much? 500,000. Marcus let out a low whistle. Well, that explains his sudden interest. My chest burned with anger. Not the explosive kind. The quiet, controlled kind. Jason wasn't waiting around in uncertainty. He was calculating. Waiting to see if Emily woke up or if he walked away with $500,000. Marcus spoke again. I've got photos, video, hotel records,
Text messages.
Good, I said. You want them?
Yes. And then what?
Marcus asked. I looked through the glass window into Emily's room. Her body was still, silent, fighting. And suddenly I realized something. Jason believed the situation was simple. If Emily died, he would inherit money. If she survived, he would continue his secret affair until he figured something else out. Either way, he thought he was winning. But Jason had made one critical mistake. He forgot something about fathers. We don't forgive easily. And we don't forget who hurts our children. Marcus, I said calmly. Yeah, keep watching him. For how long? I stared at Jason's empty chair beside Emily's bed. Until I know exactly how to destroy his life. Marcus laughed quietly. Now that sounds interesting. I hung up the phone. For the first time since the accident, my mind wasn't drowning in fear. It was clear, focused, because Jason had just turned this tragedy into a game of greed. And the problem with greedy people is simple. They always believe they're smarter than everyone else. But Jason Miller had no idea. He had just invited the worst enemy possible into his life. A father with nothing left to lose. And my next move was going to change everything. 3 days later, Emily's condition finally changed. The doctor called me into the hallway early that morning. Mr. Harper, he said gently, there's been some neurological activity. My heart jumped. Is she waking up? Not yet, he replied carefully. But it's a positive sign. For the first time since the accident, hope flickered inside my chest. Emily might survive. But strangely, that hope came with another realization. If she woke up, Jason's life would continue exactly the way it had before. The cheating, the lies, the manipulation. He would simply become more careful. And Emily, trusting, loyal Emily, might never discover the truth. That thought made my stomach twist. My daughter deserved better than a man secretly waiting to cash her life insurance. That afternoon, Jason arrived at the hospital carrying coffee. Hey, he said softly. Any updates? I studied his face. Concerned husband. Worried expression. Perfect performance. She showed some brain activity, I told him. Jason froze for a split second. It was small, almost invisible. But I saw it, that brief flicker of disappointment. Then his expression quickly shifted back to relief. That's amazing, he said quickly. That's really amazing. Amazing. The word sounded hollow. Jason sat beside Emily's bed and squeezed her hand. Come on, babe, he whispered. You're strong, you can fight this? I almost admired the acting. Almost. Later that evening, Jason stepped out again to take a call. I didn't follow him this time. I didn't need to. Marcus had already sent me everything. Photos of Jason and Samantha kissing outside restaurants. Videos of them entering the condo together late at night. Text messages filled with hearts, promises, and disgusting jokes about finally being free soon. But one message stood out. Jason, if things go the way we think, we won't have to hide anymore. Samantha replied, You mean the insurance? Jason, exactly. My hands shook the first time I read it. Not from sadness, from clarity. Jason wasn't just hoping Emily might die. He was counting on it. That night, as I sat beside my daughter, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't even going to warn him. Instead, I was going to give Jason exactly what he wanted. Hope. Because hope makes greedy people careless. I leaned close to Emily and whispered softly, "Wake up when you're ready, sweetheart." Then I looked at the folder Marcus had emailed me. Evidence, proof, leverage. Jason thought the biggest question right now was whether Emily would live or die. But the real question was something else entirely. What happens to a man when his lies, greed, and betrayal are exposed all at once? And more importantly, what happens when the person exposing them is the father of the woman he tried to profit from? Because Jason Miller had built his entire future on one assumption, that no one knew what he was doing. But soon, everyone would, and when that moment came, there would be nowhere left for him to hide. Sometimes revenge doesn't begin with anger. Sometimes it begins with a simple plan. And mine had just begun. The plan began with something simple. A lie. Not a cruel lie, not even a complicated one. Just a carefully placed piece of information that would travel exactly where I wanted it to go. 2 days later, Jason arrived at the hospital again, looking exhausted but strangely restless. He had been spending less time in Emily's room lately. Marcus confirmed why. Jason had spent the previous night at Samantha's condo again. I greeted him calmly. "The doctors want to talk about Emily's insurance and financial paperwork," I said casually. Jason's eyes flickered. "Insurance?" "Yes," I continued, pretending to sound tired. "They said if something happens, the hospital needs everything organized. Something happens." The phrase hung between us like poison. Jason nodded slowly. "Right, of course." He looked thoughtful. Too thoughtful. That evening, exactly as I expected, Marcus called me. "You were right," he said. "Tell me." Jason went straight to Samantha after leaving the hospital. I could almost picture it. Jason pouring himself a drink, Samantha sitting beside him. Two greedy people discussing someone else's life like it was a business deal. "What did they say?" I asked. Marcus chuckled quietly. "Oh, you're going to enjoy this." My grip tightened around the phone. "Go on." Jason told her the hospital is preparing paperwork for the life insurance payout. I closed my eyes. Perfect. "And Samantha?" I asked. "She's excited," Marcus replied bluntly. My stomach twisted with disgust. "Anything else?" Marcus paused. "Yeah, Jason thinks Emily probably won't wake up." For a moment I said nothing. Not because it surprised me, because it confirmed something important. Jason had already decided Emily's fate in his mind. He was simply waiting for reality to catch up. Marcus continued. "But here's the interesting part." "What?" "They're making plans." "What kind of plans?" he said. Jason mentioned Mexico. A few weeks after the insurance payout, I laughed quietly. Not because it was funny. Because it was pathetic. Jason was already spending money that didn't exist yet. Money tied to the life of my daughter. Marcus spoke again. "You still want to keep watching him." I looked through the hospital window at Emily. Her condition had improved slightly. The doctor said she might wake up within days, maybe hours. But Jason didn't know that, and that ignorance was about to become very useful.
Yes!
I told Marcus calmly. "Why?" he asked. "Because Jason needs to believe he's winning." Marcus laughed softly. "You're setting a trap?"
Exactly.
"Big one. The biggest one he's ever walked into." After I ended the call, I walked back into Emily's room and sat beside her bed. I held her hand again. Her fingers twitched slightly. A small movement, but enough to make my heart race. "Stay strong," I whispered, because Jason had no idea what was coming. He thought this story was about money, about inheritance, about a wife who might never wake up. But he was wrong. This story was about consequences. And soon, very soon, Jason Miller was going to learn the most painful lesson of his life. Never build your future on someone else's tragedy, especially when that tragedy has a father watching. And my final move was almost ready. Emily woke up on a Thursday morning. The nurse called me at 6:12 am. "Mr. Harper, your daughter is responding." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking as I rushed down the hospital hallway toward her room. When I walked inside, Emily's eyes were open. They were unfocused and weak, but they were open. "Dead," she whispered. That single word nearly broke me. "I'm here," I said quickly, gripping her hand. Tears ran down my face before I even realized it. For weeks I had been preparing myself for the worst. But my daughter had fought her way back. The doctors explained that her recovery would take time. Memory issues, physical therapy, months of healing. But she was alive, and that meant one thing. Jason's entire plan had just collapsed. I didn't call him immediately. Instead, I sat with Emily for nearly an hour while she slowly regained her awareness. Eventually, she asked the question I knew was coming. Where's Jason? I forced a calm smile. He'll be here soon. But inside my mind was already moving. Because now the real part of my plan could begin. I stepped outside the room and pulled out my phone. First, I called Marcus. She's awake, I told him. Marcus laughed quietly. Well, that ruins Jason's vacation plans. Not yet, I said. What do you mean? Jason still thinks she's unconscious. There was a short pause. Then Marcus understood. Oh, you're going to let him keep talking. Exactly. 30 minutes later, Jason arrived at the hospital. He looked tired, distracted. But the moment he saw me standing in the hallway, he immediately asked the same question he always did. Any change? I sighed heavily. Not really. Jason nodded slowly. That flicker of hidden relief returned to his face. He thought nothing had changed. Can I go see her? He asked. Of course, I replied. But before he entered the room, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. That smile told me everything. Jason stepped away down the hallway to answer the call. The door to Emily's room was slightly open. And for the first time since the accident, my daughter was awake, which meant she heard every word. Jason lowered his voice. Samantha, relax. Nothing's changed. A pause. Then he laughed softly. No, she's still in a coma. My hands slowly tightened into fists. Inside the room, Emily had gone very still. Jason continued speaking. I told you, just give it a little more time. Another pause. Then he said the sentence that ended his marriage forever. When the insurance pays out, we'll finally be free. I slowly turned toward Emily. Her face had turned pale. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. She had heard everything, every lie, every betrayal, every disgusting plan Jason had made. And suddenly the trap I had built over the past weeks snapped shut. Because the most powerful revenge isn't always exposing the truth yourself. Sometimes, you let the truth expose itself. Jason Miller had just destroyed his own life. He just didn't know it yet. But in a few minutes, he would. And when he walked back into that room, nothing would ever be the same again. Jason finished his phone call and walked back toward Emily's hospital room, still wearing that relaxed expression, the expression of a man who believed everything was going according to plan. He pushed the door open slowly, and then he froze. Emily was sitting slightly upright in the bed, her eyes open, staring directly at him. For a second, Jason looked like he had seen a ghost. Emily, he stammered. Her voice was weak, but steady. I heard everything. The color drained from his face instantly. What do you mean? He said nervously. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Your phone call, she whispered. With Samantha. Jason's mouth opened, but no words came out. I stood quietly beside the bed, watching him unravel. He looked from Emily to Mia and back again. Panic spread across his face like wildfire. Emily, listen, it's not what you think. Stop, she said softly. One word, but it carried more pain than any scream ever could. You were waiting for me to die. Jason shook his head frantically. No, that's not true. I was just... The insurance, she continued, tears running down her cheeks. You talked about the insurance. Jason looked like a drowning man grasping for air. Baby, I was confused, I was scared. Samantha doesn't mean anything. Emily closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, something had changed. The love was gone. Only clarity remained. Get out. Jason blinked. Emily, get out. The words echoed through the room. Jason turned toward me, desperate. Daniel, please tell her. I calmly pulled a thick envelope from my jacket and dropped it on the table beside him. Photos spilled across the surface. Pictures of Jason and Samantha kissing. Hotel records. Text messages. Marcus had done excellent work. Jason stared at the evidence, his face collapsing. You hired someone to follow me. I met his gaze. You betrayed my daughter while she was fighting for her life. Jason's shoulders slumped. For the first time, the reality of his situation finally hit him. The marriage was over. The insurance money was gone, and the lies he built his future on had completely collapsed. Security escorted him out of the hospital 20 minutes later. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He just walked away like a man who had lost everything. A week later, Emily filed for divorce. Jason didn't even try to fight it. Sometimes the worst punishment isn't revenge. Sometimes it's simply exposure. Because once people see who you truly are, there's no hiding from it anymore. Emily still has a long recovery ahead of her. But she's stronger now, and sometimes she tells me something that always stays with me. Dad, maybe the accident saved me. Maybe she's right. Because betrayal reveals the truth about people, and the truth always wins in the end. If this story meant something to you, leave a like. Tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. And if you believe that betrayal should never go unanswered, subscribe to Silent Revenge for more stories where the truth always finds its way to the surface.